Hello everybody and welcome back to another modelled writing video. If you've been with us before, then you know the structure of these videos, but if you are new here, then today we are going to look at two task 1 questions. So task 1 are their essay style. You have 20 minutes to answer them and you'll be given for the academic paper, you'll be given some data in the form of maybe a pie chart or a table or various different ways of displaying data. And it's your job to report back on the main features of that data. So perhaps you've booked your IELTS exam. Maybe you just want more information about task 1. Either way, this is great practice for you. And this should really help with your IELTS preparation. Okay, so let's get started then on the first task. We are looking at a line graph to begin with today, and this is a popular type of graph to come up in the exam. It might stand alone like today's one, or it might be in conjunction with other graphs and tables and things like that. So good to be aware of, really good to be confident and familiar with this one. So let's get started. Okay. The graph below shows the percentage of people in different age groups in one city who attended music concerts between 2010 and 2015. Okay, so we are not, it's quite a short, we're not being told what to do here. But we're going to follow every structure. If you've seen our videos before, we're going to report back on the information as we would to another question, and we're going to select the main features and make comparisons as well. So we'll do all of those things. In this question, we're being told what's happening. So we are focusing on the percentage of people in different age groups who attended music concerts. And these are the 2 years, 2010 and 2015. Okay, so when we bring in the data then, we can see this in a bit more detail. Along the x-axis, we have the years, 2010 to 2015. Along the y-axis, we have the percentage of people, so 0 to 80, who attended music concerts per year. We've got the key down here for the different age groups. So initial thoughts then, we have 75s and over, constituting the least amount of people attending concerts here at the bottom. On the other hand, we've got 16 to 24s who have the highest percentage of people attending concerts. And then we have, below them, 45 to 54s, then blue, 25 to 44. And in yellow, 55 to 64s. Okay, are there any trends or overviews that we can think about here? Well, towards 2015, most groups, apart from 55 and 64, were increasing their percentage of who was attending the concerts. They were all increasing apart from this group. So with that in mind then, let's think about our plan. Now, our plan is so important in order to stay on track and focused. You only have 20 minutes, so you might think, I don't need to make a plan in that case. But the flip side of that is exactly, you only have 20 minutes. So we want to use our time very wisely, and we want to be able to really create a strong essay with the time that we have. Okay then, so how we're going to tackle this, we're going to form 2 groups, and then we're going to make notes about our overview as well. So the 2 groups, we could go in a few different directions here. We could talk about different age groups. We could talk about the years. I often think the years are perhaps easier to talk about. So I might go for the first group. We might say 2010 2011 and 2012. Then the second group, you guessed it, 2013, 2014 and 2015. An overview. By 2015, all ages were increasing the percentage that were attending music concerts. So more people were going. Concerts apart from 55 to 64. So our overview then, we're making a sweeping statement, we're being very broad and we're not going into specifics, but we're just making generalizations here. Okay, so with that in mind then, we now have the question and we've got this nice graphic here to show us how we can use different synonyms to help us not repeat ourselves, because we don't want to keep saying the same things. So words for decreased, stay the same, increased, and then words, adverbs at the end here to combine with the verbs to make a really strong way of expressing ourselves and reporting back on the data that we have when you use them together. Okay, and of course you'll have your plan. We've got it on the previous slide, so we can refer back to that. So you might be wondering how we start this essay. Well, we're going to start by paraphrasing the first sentence here. Paraphrasing is putting it into our own words. So we don't have to paraphrase every single word, but just the general idea. So let's be more specific. The line graph displays information or data on the amounts of individuals varying across various ages in one particular place who attended music concerts, who went to musical festivals between 2010 and 2015. Let's read this back. The line graph displays data on the amount of individuals varying across, now really important to read this back, varying across age groups maybe, or varying across different amount of individuals across different or various age ranges in one particular place who went to musical festivals between 2010 and 2015. So always really important to read back, make sure that everything flows nicely, spelling, grammar, things like that. Okay, so we've done our paraphrasing. Now we want to make our sweeping statement. And actually this trend sort of begins from 2013. The percentage was generally increasing. So we can be specific. By 2013, the percentage of people attending these events was increasing for all ages except for 55 to 64. Except for the 55 to 64 group. So that's our overarching statement then. We're not being too specific, but we're giving our general what's happening. And actually, that's the point. Let's start with a nice phrase like, on the whole, by 2013, the percentage of people attending these events was increasing for all ages except for the 55 to 64 group. Okay, so I think we're ready to get started on our first grouping, which will be the first 3 years, 2010, 2011 and 2012. Okay, so let's make a comment about 2010. Maybe we can comment that 75 plus were the lowest. In 2010, 75 and overs were going to the least. Were going to concerts the least. 10% of them. This is in, maybe we can talk about the 45 to 54. Stark contrast to 45 to 54, who were visiting who were frequenting these who were frequenting the most. 50, so we have a 10-year gap here, maybe 52%. 2%. Okay, so let's touch upon maybe the rise of 16 to 24 in 2011 and also 55 to 64. However, in 2011, 16 to 24 sharply let's think of another word. Sharply rocketed to take the biggest or the largest percentage or largest figure of any age. Let's have a look. 2011 is about here, roughly 54%, maybe. What else is happening? 55 to 64, 55 to 64 saw an increase also, albeit very gradual, to reach maybe 20, just over 25, to reach just over 25%. Okay, now let's talk about 2012. What happens here? Maybe we can mention 25 to 44, dipping there. And, actually, we could mention this dramatic drop of 45 to 54. Let's say in 2012, 45 to 54 was climbing after a steep decline in 2011 to it fell to 40%. So it's now back on the rise in 2012. What else is on the rise? Actually, is that the only group to be on the rise? 16 to 24 again. 55 to 64 again. 75 plus. Let's compare it to another group. Let's compare it to, actually in 2012, it was nearly 10% lower than 16 to 24. In 2012, 45 to 54 was climbing after a steep decline in 2011. Maybe to avoid repeating ourselves in the next year. In 2012, this group reached just over 50%, 10%, almost 10% lower than 16 to 24. Okay, let's read this back and see how we're doing. In 2010, 75 and overs were going to concerts at least, 10% of them. This is in stark contrast to 45 to 54, who were frequenting the most at 52%. However, in 2011, 16 to 24 sharply rocketed to have the largest figure out of any age, roughly 54%. 55 to 64 saw an increase also, albeit very, very gradual, to reach just over 25%. In the next year, 45 to 54 was climbing after a steep decline in 2011. It fell to 40%. In 2012, this group reached just over 50%, almost 10% lower than 16 to 24. Okay then, so I think we can go to our next group, which is the next 3 years. So what's happening in 2013? Oh, actually 55 and 64 and 25 and 44 are almost the same here. So we could start this off significantly. The beginning of 2013 saw 55 to 64 and 25 to 44 have almost identical statistics. Very close to 30%. Okay, brilliant. So maybe we could jump to 2014. Anything happening here? We've got lots of things happening in 2014. The following year saw both groups. Maybe we could talk about them going in different directions. Saw 25 to 44 or maybe not increase, let's use another word, grow. Let's use a bracket. What did that grow to in 2014? About 38%. On the other hand, the latter group declined. That fell to about 25%. Okay, what else is happening? Let's talk about some other groups. 75 plus also saw a rise, like 25 to 44, reaching about 14%. Okay, let's then describe 2015. By 2015, let's talk about these three at the top. Well, all of them increasing. All groups except for 55 to 64 were rising with had rising percentages or had rising numbers, especially 16 to 24, which ended the year, or which ended with just over 70%. Okay, and maybe we can pick on another group here. Maybe we could say, oh, let's see, 25 to 44, or 45 to 54, 45 to 54. After plateauing for a few years, we're making sure that we're spelling this correctly. For a few, oh, there we go, forgot the I. For a few years, saw a quick, or maybe maybe a small rocket or a small surge in percentage by 2015. Let's read this back and see how it sounds. Significantly, the beginning of 2013 saw 55 to 64 and 25 to 44 have almost identical statistics, very close to 30%. The following year, editing is so important, saw 25 to 44 grow, 38%. On the other hand, the latter group declined, 25%. 75 plus also saw a rise like 25 to 44, reaching 14%. By 2015, all groups except for 55 to 64 had rising numbers, especially 16 to 24, which ended with just over 70%. 45 to 54, after plateauing for a few years, saw a small surge in percentage by 2015. Okay, so we've looked over our answer, making sure it's all right. Let's check the words. All right, so this comes to, for my calculations, 212 words. So yes, over the 150 limit, but there is no, sorry, not limit, minimum, but there is no limit. So there's no upper restrictions on words. So if you can write and type quite fast, then you can sort of do as much as you can do, really, without obviously sticking to the questions. So we just want to report on the main features and make comparisons where relevant. But you can see the structure that we're following here. This is how we approach all task ones. And so you're welcome to follow this structure. Maybe you already have at home, and you can see how it works here. Okay, so that was our first line graph. Now we've actually got a second line graph to look at. So if you are struggling with line graphs, then this is the video for you. We've got 2 in 1 today. So let's have a look. The chart below gives information about population growth in 3 major Australian cities from 1992 to 2016. Summarise the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Right, so we've got instructions on this one, but nevertheless, we follow this every time. We want to, I'll get my pen, select and report on the main features and also make comparisons where they are relevant, not all the time, just when they're particularly important. Okay then, so what are we doing for this one? We are thinking about population growth in 3 Australian cities from these years. All right, let's bring in the data. Here we go. So this is the line graph. On the x-axis, we've got the years, and 1992 to 2016. The different lines represent the different cities: Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane. And here on the y-axis, we have the thousands, so the number in thousands. And this is the population growth. Okay, so initial thoughts then. Well, all cities have more people by 2016 than they do in 1992, that's for sure. Any other observations? In particular, Melbourne. Brisbane has a lot less in general than the other 2 cities. Yeah, there was a fall here by Sydney in 2004, but then it rose again. So Brisbane, for most of the time, had the majority of had the most people compared to the other 2 cities. Okay then, so let's think about our plan and let's put this all together. Now, grouping wise, we can talk about, maybe we could group 2 cities in one and the other one in the next one. There's a lot to talk about with all of them, so I'm a bit hesitant to do that, to be honest. So again, I might lean towards the years because 2004 is a nice middle point. Between 1992, which is 16 years before. It's 16 years. We have 8 plus 4, 12 years, and then we have another 12 years there. So that's a nice middle point. So I might be tempted to split it into that, to be honest, and then we could discuss all cities between these years. So 1992 to 2004, and then we'll pick up 2004 to 2016. So that's the 2004 is like the link here, really. So all our overview, all cities increased population by 2016 in comparison with 1992. In particular, Melbourne, we can pick on being the highest there. All right, so your plan is there. It will help you through your essay. You can refer back to it and it will keep us on track then. Right, let's go to our write-up, and just like the last one, we have the question, we have words to help us here so we're not repeating ourselves, and of course we have the data to draw from. And like with every task 1, what do we have to do first? We have to paraphrase. So let's put this sentence into our own words. We can say something like the line graph provides data on the amount of people residing in 3 large Australian cities. You're noticing that I can't paraphrase every single word, but there we go. From the years 1992 to 2016. Let's read this back. The line graph provides data on the amount of people we don't want to be too accurate and stray. So instead of residing, because that might change the meaning a bit, provides data on the amount of people in 3 large Australian cities from the years 1992 to 2016. Okay then, so now let's go into our overview, our sweeping statement. In general, that's quite a nice way to open it up. All cities witnessed an increase in population in 2016 compared with 1992. And we're just going to use our notes for this, in particular, Melbourne. In particular, Melbourne. In general, all cities witnessed an increase in population in 2016 compared with 1992, in particular Melbourne. Okay, so that's our sweeping statement there. We haven't gone into detail, as you've seen, but now is our chance to go into detail with our first group, 1992 to 2004. So, in 1992, all cities had, well, population of 30,000 and below, but they were between 20 and 30, I would say. So in 1992, all cities had a population between 20 and 30,000. And then what happened between what happened then? So 1995, Melbourne saw quite a significant drop. In 1995, Melbourne saw a steady drop in numbers, reaching, I'd say 10, maybe 12, or maybe a bit more. It's hard to read sometimes, so we can be sort of rough about it. That's about 10 there, maybe 13 or 14. We could say nearly 15, hitting nearly 15,000 people. Okay. Let's have a look. Well, actually, it was just before 1995. Maybe we can say that just before 1995, Melbourne saw a steady drop in numbers, hitting nearly 15,000 people. Okay, so what happened then? We want to talk about the years, maybe anything significant happening in these years. Well, Sydney is rising. Should we say in 1995 and between 1998, but then it drops again. So how about we say between 1995 and 1998, both Melbourne and Sydney see maybe a surge in figures. Melbourne was close to reaching 40,000 individuals. Okay, let's sort of go into 2001. Brisbane is seeing a rise there, and Sydney is having its largest, having a spike there. So in 2001, Brisbane witnessed, or Brisbane had a gradual, or Brisbane was gradually rising, or had been rising, had been gradually rising for a few years, whilst Sydney was spiking at or was rocketing and reached just over 60,000. 60,000. There we go. We can do the numbers there. Okay, let's round this up and take this to 2004, or maybe we could start that in the next paragraph. We'll have a read and see what we feel. So, in 1992, all cities had a population between 20 and 30,000. Just before 1995, Melbourne saw a steady drop in numbers, hitting nearly 15,000 people. And we're making sure that our numbers are okay. Between 1995 and 1998, both Melbourne and Sydney saw, always good to check, a surge in figures. Melbourne was close to reaching 40,000. Melbourne, in fact, was close to reaching 40,000 individuals. In 2001, Brisbane had been gradually rising for a few years, while Sydney was rocketing and reached just over 60,000. Okay. However, let's end this with, however, 2004 saw a significant drop for Sydney. Close to 20,000. Alrighty then, let's head into our second group, which is going to go from 2004 onwards. And let's focus on anything significant happening, or Sydney has a rise. After 2004, Sydney and Melbourne. They are quite moderate, well, quite significantly or sharply increasing, were sharply increasing in population. Should we see if we can take any numbers here? And in 2007, and in 2007, let's have a look. It's this graph is a bit difficult to read. So we have about 70, should we say 75? Sydney hit 75,000. Okay, then after around 2010, Brisbane had a steep fall. After 2010, on the other hand, Brisbane had a steep fall and sank to 40,000. Okay, what is happening in, let's say, 2013? just before 2013, all cities were experiencing a climb until Brisbane yet again had a more moderate decrease. Can we put in a figure here reaching 40,000? Reaching the same figure that it was in 2010. 40,000. We can use a bracket here. Okay, how can we round this up? So in 2016, both Sydney and Melbourne had over 100,000, these here. Even though Brisbane, the gap, Brisbane had less than half of this number, around about 50,000. Nevertheless, 2016, it was on the rise, or on the rise in 2016. Okay, let's read this back and double check everything. After 2004, Sydney and Melbourne were sharply increasing in population, and in 2007, Sydney hit 75,000. Let's just double check that figure about here. Yes. After 2010, on the other hand, Brisbane has had a steep fall and sank to 40,000. So 2010, yeah, round about that. Just before 2013, all cities were experiencing a climb until Brisbane yet again had a more moderate decrease, reaching the same figure that it was in 2010, 40,000 around here. Until Brisbane had a more moderate decrease in the following years. We can be more specific. Years reaching the same figure. Okay, in 2016, both Sydney and Melbourne had over 100,000. Yep, that's true. We don't always have to be specific. Brisbane had less than half of this number. Nevertheless, it was on the rise in 2016. Okay, so that is our second line graph of the day. Let's see how many words it is. Okay, so that brings us to 215 words. So again, over the 150 minimum there, but at least you can see the structure and how we're organizing this essay. And so you can use the structure in your own essays. And hopefully that's helped today. Two very different line graphs. As you can see, I prefer to use the times as a grouping, but there are obviously different ways you can do that as long as you're logically grouping them together. That's the main thing. So we'd love to hear from you. If you've got any questions about today, let us know. And I hope that's been of use to you, and we'll see you next time.